Hello, welcome to the second video in my series, The 12 Myths of Christmas. If you haven't seen the first video yet, you might want to go back and check that out. We look at some of the concepts that we have about Santa Claus and where they came from. Today's issue is going to be a little bit more serious. This is an issue which is quite divisive among some people in the church. And as Christians, we certainly don't want to be divisive. So let's see if we can find the truth to the question, is it disrespectful or even sacrilegious to use the abbreviation Xmas instead of Christmas, because, as some of them claim, it X's out the word Christ? Well, to understand this, we first need to look at the word Christ and where that word actually comes from. The word Christ is not originally an English word. It's actually an English transliteration of the Greek word Christos. And even the Greek word Christos is a translation of the Hebrew word Mashiach, which means Messiah. So the word Christ actually simply just means the Messiah or the anointed one. And contrary to some belief, it is not Jesus' last name. It is actually a title. If Jesus at the time had a legal last name, it probably would have been Ben Yusuf, or son of Joseph, since Joseph was Jesus' legal father, even though we know he was not his biological father. So, the word Christos, meaning Christ, in the New Testament, is of course written in Greek. Greek was the language that the New Testament was originally written in, because Greek at the time was kind of a worldwide language. Everyone in the Near East and Middle East at that time, if they spoke a second language, that language was most likely Greek. So the New Testament was written in Greek, so that way it could be read by almost anyone in the known world at that time. So the word Christos, written in Greek, actually starts with the letter chi. And the Greek letter chi looks like an English letter X. The English letter X actually evolved from the Greek letter chi, which is the first letter in the word Christos. So, because of this, the symbol that we call an X has actually been used for a long time as an abbreviation or as a symbol representing Christ. When the Christians in the first few couple of centuries were being persecuted by the Romans, they of course had to meet in secret. So they had to come up with a code or a system of markings that they could use to identify each other, to identify meeting places, and so on. And one of the symbols they would use is this Greek letter chi, or X, as we would call it. Not just because it's the first letter in the word Christos, but also because the X kind of resembles a cross. So the X has actually represented Jesus Christ longer than we have ever used it to represent marking something out. Another symbol, which kind of evolved from this, that the ancient Christians used, and sometimes is still in use today, is the symbol of the fish. Maybe you've seen on the backs of cars or on stickers or t-shirts or something, a symbol of a fish with some kind of funny-looking markings inside of it. Well, those funny-looking markings are actually Greek letters. They are the Greek letters iota, chi, theta, upsilon, sigma, which unfortunately a lot of times will be incorrectly written as the English letters I-X-O-Y-E, which is not what they represent. They actually represent the letters I-C-H-T-H-U-S, which spells out the Greek word ichthus, which is simply the Greek word for fish. Well, how does a fish represent Jesus? The ancient Christians would use this word ichthus, or this symbol of a fish, to represent an acrostic. An acrostic is simply where you take the first letter of a series of words and use that to spell out something else. In this case, the iota, chi, theta, upsilon, sigma are the first letters of the Greek words Jesus, Christos, Theos, Huios, Soterios, which means Jesus, Christ, God, Son, Savior. So when you see the emblem of the fish with those markings inside, that's a very ancient Christian symbol that represents Jesus. Again, in this case, the chi, or the X, actually represents Christ, or is an abbreviation for the word Christ. And even through the Middle Ages, the X, or the chi, has been used to represent Jesus Christ. Maybe you've seen this symbol in some churches and thought that that was an XP. It's actually not. It's actually the Greek letters chi rho, or CHR, which is the first two letters in the word Christos. So that's just another symbol that represents Christ. Also, during the Middle Ages, when an illiterate person needed to sign a legal document, but he didn't know how to write his own name, oftentimes he would just simply, in the presence of legal witnesses, he would mark the document with an X. And then he would kiss that X. Maybe you've seen in some cartoons or old movies someone signing his name with an X. That's just the way that a person would do it who didn't know how to write his name. But he would mark that X, and then he would kiss that X. That X represented Christ, and by kissing it, he is saying, I swear to Christ that I am who I say I am. And incidentally, it's also this act of kissing the X on documents that led to the X being used as a symbol for a kiss in love letters. This is why X's represent kisses. And even Christopher Columbus, someone you may have heard of, whenever he would sign his name, first of all, the way he wrote his name, or the way he spelled his name, was actually different depending on what country he was in. In some places, he was Cristoforo. In some places, he was Cristobal. What he called himself just depended on where he was at the time. But when he signed his name, he also would often just use an X to represent the Christ of the word Christopher. So X has long been used as a symbol representing Christ. Again, much longer than it has ever been used to represent marking something out. So is it sacrilegious to use X in the phrase Xmas? Actually, no, it's not. This is just an old way of abbreviating the word Christmas. The X is not trying to cross out Christ. It's trying to represent Christ. And whether or not it is sacrilegious simply depends on the intent of the person who wrote it. If the person meant to use it so they wouldn't have to write the word Christ, then yes, I would consider it to be disrespectful. But most people, that's not what they intend by it. They're just using an old abbreviation that's been around almost as long as Christianity itself. So that's the lesson for today. Join me again tomorrow, where I'll bring you another misconception that some people have about Christmas. Thanks for watching.